Build your business and improve your finances from the inside out with Joan Sotkin on The Prosperity Show.
Hi, Joan Sotkin here, and The Prosperity Show provides a holistic approach to building your business or professional practice. And because who you are and how you live your life forms the foundation of your business, we focus on your physical, emotional, and spiritual health so you can build a strong base for your success. And along with the personal focus, The Prosperity Show also provides information about real-world business and financial skills that will ensure your financial success. My main site is prosperityplace.com, where you can download free audios and ebooks designed to help you build your money muscles and live a happier, healthier, and more prosperous life. Before we get to today's topic, I want to mention that my new book is coming out very shortly. It's called The Search for Connection, a spiritual journey to physical, emotional, and financial health. And that's going to be coming out in very short time. And when it does first come out, I'm going to have a couple of days where I do a free book promotion on Amazon.com. So if you'd like to get a free copy of the Kindle edition of this book, then make sure you're on my mailing list. When all you have to do is go to prosperityplace.com and sign up for the free audios and ebooks if you're not on my list already. And I'll be notifying everyone on my list when the book goes live. And it'll also be available as a paperback simultaneously, but I'm giving away the Kindle book for free. And the book is about the journey I took when I gave away everything I owned and went wandering for quite a long time, never knew where my money was coming from for food or lodging. Sometimes there was no money for food or lodging, and I never saw myself as really homeless. I saw it as a spiritual journey. So I think you'll find it interesting. Joe Vitale read it and highly recommends it. I've gotten a number of endorsements from people who all say it's inspiring, and I'd love to have you check it out. And if you're on my mailing list and you find out about this, then you can have it for free. So go to prosperityplace.com and sign up if you're not on my mailing list already. And so what I want to talk about today is I have a monthly call that I do with one of my groups. And during the last call, we had a really juicy discussion, and there was a technology glitch, so I couldn't record the call. So for the people who weren't on the call, I promised that I would look at the topic that we discussed for most of the session and do a podcast episode on it. And what came up, which comes up a lot, is people who have accomplished what they hoped to accomplish, and yet they're still worried about the future, and they're still struggling with their money, or something keeps recurring that just didn't go away when they reached their level of accomplishment that they had hoped to reach. And this happens for a lot of people. It doesn't matter whether it's making a lot of money or expressing yourself through creativity and having other people say, wow, that's wonderful. Whatever it is, it's a habit that's keeping you where you are. I've said this before, but I want to really look at this habit thing and take a look at it with you so you can begin to look at yourself from maybe a different point of view. It was many years ago when I was at a lecture at a monastery, actually, and the person giving the lecture said everything about you is a habit. And I thought, what an interesting concept, that we're just a bunch of habits. And over the years, I've had a chance to look at that a lot more deeply. And now that I understand brain science and a lot of the techniques that I use, there's no doubt in my mind that everything about us, me, you, is a habit. And that in order to alter your life outcomes, you have to develop different habits. Unfortunately, we're complex beings, so it's not like you look it up and you see what the habit is and then you make it go away. It doesn't work that way. You actually have to become aware of the patterns in your life and consciously say, okay, this is my pattern. What would I rather be doing? How would I rather be thinking, believing, behaving? What is it about me that, and the way I behave, that's holding me back? People tend to say, what's wrong with me, when there's nothing wrong with you. You're just doing what you're doing, and it's a habit. And when you can recognize the pattern, then you can change it, and your outcomes will be different. One of the problems is that people want an instant result. But if you've got a habit that's been with you for 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, or even 70 years, it's not going to change overnight. You've probably heard that you've got to do something for 28 days in order to establish the habit. I don't think there's this absolute formula that you can follow. It happens when it happens, and it's not as if you're where you are now and suddenly it's going to shift, say, in a month or 2 months, and you're suddenly going to be in a new place. You're actually morphing into a new persona, which is not an easy thing because you've gotten to know yourself as you are today. It doesn't mean that you're going to rapidly alter that because you have to learn a whole new set of thoughts, beliefs, emotions, and behaviors. And the reason why most people don't accomplish what they want is because they're not willing to stick with it. And you have to go through the process that I've talked about multiple times where you get disoriented. But if you're determined to change your financial position, your life position, whatever it is, if you can recognize the habits that are present, then you're going to be able to decide what you're going to do instead and train yourself to do that. It's so different than looking at yourself and saying, what's wrong with me? This is the work I do with my clients, is to help them recognize their patterns, because it's very hard to recognize your own patterns sometimes. Sometimes you need help because you don't know what you don't know, and you're so used to being who you are that it's hard to recognize the patterns. So one of the things that came up during the session when we were talking was the person was describing how well he's doing and he's getting all the recognition he wanted, and he's getting recognition from major people in his field. So it's not just like other people, let's say ordinary people who are saying you're fabulous. These are people who have a lot of power and can help move his career forward, and he's in awe of what's happening. But when he's with the people, he still feels like a little boy who's not so sure that anyone's going to love him. Now, that's a habit. And I know that I remember when I used to go into the bank, and this is before even when I was making a lot of money with my business, and I felt like a little kid going into the bank and talking to the banker who represented a parent, and I was kind of in this child position. And I began to really recognize that. And in today's words, it was a habit. And so what I learned to do, and this took quite a while, and I remember I was living in Hollywood where there's a lot of celebrity, and the celebrities used to come into my crystal store. And my brother was producing Golden Girls, and there were a lot of celebrities around him. He was the executive producer of Golden Girls. And there was just a lot of celebrity in my life. When I was working on the Joey Bishop show, there was a lot of celebrity in my life. And I realized that my habit was to feel less than when I was with people in a more powerful position. Can you relate to that? It's like when you're comparing yourself to someone else, oh, they make all this money, I can't make it. You're not feeling like they're equal. And it always amazes me that people want to work with high-end clients, but they don't feel like equals to their high-end clients. And people who are in positions of power or have a lot of wealth, they can recognize in a minute when someone feels like they're shrinking when they're next to them. Their radar goes out and they can just feel it. So in order to not only be accepted by other people, but to feel comfortable in a successful position, especially vis-a-vis other people in that position, you have to teach yourself how to be that strong, successful person. And you don't have to have money. You don't have to actually have success. You just have to feel it. And it's amazing. Remember, your feelings are the creative force behind your life stories. So if you can get yourself into a feeling space of success and wealth, then you're on your way to creating it. I remember when I first started doing this podcast 3 years ago, and I started interviewing successful people. That's who I was interviewing. And they don't know anything about me. They've just signed up for the interview. And as long as I acted like they're equal, they treated me like an equal. It was wonderful. And so the last 3 years, one of the main benefits to me of this podcast is allowing me to really accept my place in this podcast world and being really confident about who I am and what I have to say. Now, I don't compare myself to people like John Lee Dumas, who gets millions of downloads a month. I don't compare my show to his. But I don't think that he's any better than me or stronger than me. He's just a guy who worked really hard to get 1 million downloads a month because that matters to him. So the habit is the feeling habit. If you have a habit of feeling less than next to other people, that's not who you are. That's not the truth. Because no one is better than you are. We're all the same on some level. We all have our liver in the same place, or although I know my kidneys are not in the right place and my brother's appendix weren't in the right place, but we all have the body parts, or most of us have the body parts to start out with. So there's a sameness about us, but we tend to see the outside and allow our perceptions from childhood color this sense of inequality. And because money is so important to people in today's society, we tend to measure better and best, or not good, less than, by how much money we have. And that has nothing to do with our value as a human being. Just being present has value, and it's up to you as to how you deal with or value that gift of life. I always wonder how people can steal from other people. It's just amazing to me that people can go into a store and steal. When I was a teenager, we used to go into the Five and Dime and take lipsticks. I remember we used to do that. But that didn't last very long, and it's not uncommon among teenagers to do that. But when people do it as a career, that's something I just can't imagine. Somewhere they have to wake up and decide I'm going to go hurt that person and take something from them because I don't have it. When you start seeing yourself as an equal to all other living things, and you start treating yourself as an equal and learning how to feel that, then you can overcome a lot. That less than feeling is so common, particularly among anyone who has experienced any kind of abuse or neglect, if their parents were alcoholics or drug addicts, if your parents got divorced or you lost a parent early in your life. All these things contribute to those feelings of less than, because as children, we don't have the discrimination to be able to say, this is how I'm feeling, what are my options? And now that you're an adult, and I'm assuming that everybody who's listening is an adult, you have the right to say and the ability to say, this is what is in my life, and it's just a habit. What are my options? And if you can't figure out any options for yourself, then go talk to someone or get a coach or do something, become part of a group. For me, when I had absolutely no money, it was the 12-step programs. And when you hear other people share what's going on inside of them, then you begin to see your options. If you ever give other people advice, you're probably telling yourself what one of your options might be. So it's getting out of the place of thinking that life is just happening to you. It's happening through you, and you're part of what's happening. And to ask yourself, okay, if I feel less than when I'm with my boss or I'm with my clients, very often people feel less than with their clients, then where did that feeling come from? What is the habit that you developed? And do you have any inkling as what you might be able to feel instead? I was talking to someone the other day who had a really serious dissatisfaction habit. And when we talked, he realized that he really didn't know how to be satisfied, that his default in any situation was to go to the place of dissatisfaction. That's his habit. Whatever you're feeling, whatever you're experiencing, whatever you're thinking is a habit. Many of you are familiar with negative self-talk. That's just a habit that develops because your brain is wired for you to see the negative so that you can protect yourself. But your negative self-talk is not getting you anywhere. It's keeping you stuck where you are, and it's a habit. So you can actually teach yourself to have positive expectations. You just have to really be determined to do it. When it comes to feeling comfortable in a new group or with new people or with people who you perceive to be in a higher position than you, you can always remember the words I learned from my dog Angel, because this is her attitude. I'm here, I have every right to be here, and I know you're going to love me. And you can scratch my back now. And I see her every day get everything she wants because she just walks up to people and assumes they're going to accept and love her. Now, she's only 15 pounds, and she has to compete with these dogs who are 60, 70. There's a couple of dogs we walk with who weigh well over 120 pounds. And she just assumes she belongs there. The other day, I went to a Chamber of Commerce event, which I haven't done in a long time. And it was great because so many people said, oh, we're so glad to see you. And I really see that I want to go back there. But at one point, I was talking to two guys who were well over 6 feet tall. And I'm about 5'6" now. I've actually lost an inch over the years. But they were much taller than I was. And there were two of them. And I began to be aware of feeling small. I was always around 5'7", and so I was tall for a woman. Not tall, but a good height. And I know that I really feel better when I'm taller than other people. And when I'm in this place where I am smaller, there's a feeling that goes with it. So while I was aware of talking to them and feeling their height, I did everything I could internally to feel as tall as they do. Now, I have no idea what it's like to feel, to be 6'3" or 6'5", but I know what it feels like to feel big. And if you want to play big, you have to feel big. If you feel little and you're playing small, well, that's a habit. It's just a habit. It's not who you are. And I want you to get this phrase into your head. This is just a habit. It's not who I am, and I have the power to change it. And ask yourself, what would I rather be feeling, doing, believing, behaving at this very moment? Because you have that power to change. You know, I've been talking about the themes for this podcast. Last year was the courage to be you. This year was the courage to express yourself. And next year is going to be the courage to express your personal power. To stand up and be tall inside and know that you are equal to absolutely anybody. Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, they're just people who have certain talents that were recognized, and they were willing to be big. How many people do you hear about who were successful and suddenly weren't? There was this story, I forget her name, of this CEO who became a billionaire, and within a short period of time, in terms of a couple of years, she was down to nothing. She didn't know how to be internally a billionaire. If you're dreaming about winning the lottery, I suggest you start with scratch-offs. That's a whole lot easier because you don't have to overcome as many hurdles. If you're thinking about winning the lottery, what will it feel like to be a millionaire? Now, you're going to say, oh, that's going to feel wonderful. No, I want you to really think that through. I'm with my friends who are in the same position that they've always been in, and now I've got all this money, and they're seeing me in a whole different way. How am I going to maintain my connection and feel equal to them? Practice it when you're talking to people who you perceive to be in a higher position than you're in. How can you take a deep breath and tune in to what you think they're feeling? Because if you think they're feeling strong and powerful, that feeling is actually inside of you, or you couldn't have imagined it. Can you see that? It's like if you can imagine that someone else is hurting, that's called empathy. If you can imagine that someone is feeling strong and powerful, that's not only empathy, as the other is, it's a feeling that's inside of you. Now remember, we're all connected. I know this is easy to say, but hard to really live, where you realize that we are all connected. That feeling of separateness that you have is an illusion. That's the big illusion, that we are separate and alone. And the more you can feel that connection and feel like you belong, you will. Feeling like you belong, feeling like an outsider, those are habits that can be altered if you set your mind to it. I've shared on this podcast how I came to understand that I was being touched but didn't feel touched. And as soon as I taught myself how to feel touched and I practiced it on a daily basis, my business changed. And what I'm realizing now, you've heard me talk about getting into the working with crystals again in the mineral kingdom. I am going to talk more about this because there's no doubt in my mind that working with the mineral kingdom, which is part of us, can really help us on a very real, solid level. But the more I allowed myself to feel touched, in my book I talk about feeling loved, accepted, acknowledged, and appreciated, and those are the feelings to work on. And once I really felt that, and I was accepting who I was, who I am, I started doing stuff that really had meaning for me, and I feel fabulous about what's going on in my life now. People tell me they can hear it in my voice. I can hear it as I'm doing this podcast. There's an energy I have now that I haven't had in a long time because I just know I'm in the right place. And you can't get into that right place until you feel strong and powerful about who you are. Now, I'm an extrovert, obviously. I like to talk. I talk all the time. You don't have to be an extrovert in order to be powerful. I have a friend who is about my age. He's a very successful businessman who's retired now, and he tends to be quiet. He doesn't speak up the way I do, which is actually a safer position to be in. But it's his quietness that's his power, because people try to get him to respond. So whatever your persona, whatever your communication style is, use it, work with it, and know that there isn't one style that's better than another. Extroverts tend to get more attention because we've got ourselves out there and we're waving our flag. Look at me, which is, a little weird, but that, if you've lived this way all your life, it's a habit. But it's also, I think there's a genetic component and a cultural component within your family. I mean, all those things play, and you don't necessarily want to change all those things. You just want to alter the things that aren't working for you. And I really would like this episode to be the one that really clues you in, tunes you in to the habit that you're being. Who you are goes way beyond your body, mind. It's something none of us really understand, the core of who we are. And it's at that core that we're all connected. And to me, marketing is just learning how to connect to other parts of ourselves, to the people who sing a similar tune. I'm not going to try to market to people who are part of another tribe, another energy gestalt. There are just different kinds of people. There was a group I went to the other day, and they just didn't feel like my people. And be aware of those things. They're not my people, but they're still people. And I know that there's some commonality with every one of them. And I just have to let myself feel it. Doesn't mean I have to move in with them, but I have to be able to recognize that I'm not doing this thing alone. We are all connected, and it's up to me to recognize that and to develop a habit of feeling equal to and connected with. Those two feelings are going to do an enormous amount to helping you move forward with your life. And I think that's enough for today. So, as I mentioned in the beginning, my book is about to come out. And it was during that journey that I learned an awful lot. It certainly looked to the outside world as if I was homeless. But I knew I was on a spiritual journey, which is why I kept a diary and wrote it all down and was able to put the story together. And everyone who's read it so far has told me it's really a fascinating story. So just go to Prosperity Place at this point I'm going to have a site called Search for Connection. We'll get to that. I can't do everything. I'm doing most of this stuff alone, and I have other people doing some of the back-end work, but I'm trying to get my feel for this Kindle publishing world, and at the same time, the Etsy store, and I'm doing a whole lot of things at once. And before I hire people, I like to learn how to do things so that I know how to direct them when it comes time. So I hope you'll go to prosperityplace.com, download the free audios and ebooks, and that'll get you on my list, and I'll let you know when the book is going to be out there for free. It's only going to be a couple of days, and then it'll be 99 cents for a short time, and that's the Kindle book. The Create Space book, I haven't figured out the price of that yet. So that's it for today. I really appreciate your being here, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Bye now.